I don't know what lineup we could have gone to. The value we thought we would get out of it, we didn't get out of it.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast is also brought to you by Charles Oakley from Patreon. If you want to be a Patreon sponsor, support the show, head to patreon.com/redrock_bball. My name is Josh Lloyd, and you can always find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. So go ahead and follow me over there. Of course, there is the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/redrockbasketball. And if you're not a member of Basketball Monster, why don't you go and have a look at that and check out our DFS tools, plus our season-long stuff as well, and get access to all the great stuff that we've got over on Basketball Monster. We have got 11 big games from Saturday to wrap up. We've got a very weird and very short 4-game Sunday as well. So
let's get to it.
We'll start off with the monstrous line of the night, and this bloke, look, he just keeps getting them. Jimmy Harden, once again with a big performance. 29 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists, and I guess it looks pretty small when you compare it to some of the other lines that Harden's had, but the devil in this one's in the detail, where he had 4 3-pointers, he had 3 steals, he had 2 blocks, he was 7 of 9 from the field, and he was 11 of 12 from the free throw line. So not only did he do his standard big scoring, big assists, good rebounds, got 5 combined steals and blocks, and was brilliant with your percentages. He is the number 1 player this season. He's the number 1 player over the last 3 months. He's the number 1 player over the last 2 months. He's the number 1 player over the last month. He's the number 1 player this season in fantasy. Kevin Durant is just behind him, and Gianni's up there as well. But Harden has been ludicrous, averaging 29, 8, and 11.5. Over 3 triples, 1.5 steals, and half a block. And recently, the block numbers are coming up. He's at 0.7 over the last month, and that's not fluky. That's the numbers that he's done the last 2 seasons. So you can see him actually getting better. He's actually shooting the ball better as well. He's taken his true shooting up from 59.8 up to 61.7. More efficient, going at almost 1% better from the field as well, and that's including a dip from the 3-point line. So yeah, some really fantastic numbers from James this season, and the Rockets continue to be a team that I guess surprise a lot of people, and looking like a serious challenger to at least be a conference finals team. The waiver wire line of the night goes to a player from the same team. It is also the recipient of the young gun of the night, and it is Big Sammy Dekker of the Houston Rockets. Dekker made the start in front of Ryan Anderson, 30 points, 6 triples, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and 12 of 19 shooting. Now, I say a lot of words on the podcast. I'm sure you're aware of that because I talk a lot. You would have heard me say a lot of words. I don't remember every single word that I say, but I get the general remembrance of things that I say, the general vibe of some of the things that I say. I am 95% convinced the other day, maybe yesterday, I can't remember what day it was, that I said that maybe the Rockets would be better off with Sam Dekker starting in place of Ryan Anderson. I'm not sure that's 100% the case, but they definitely didn't miss a beat in Dekker's first career start. Dekker's been a player that I've been very impressed with all the way back since Summer League. He's looked powerful. He's looked very good defensively, hustle-wise. Shooting has improved. And what do you lose with Dekker playing over Anderson? Okay, 3-point shooting. I understand that. But Dekker's still a 34% shoot. That's not great. It's not Anderson level. But Anderson also hasn't really been Anderson over the past couple of seasons. He's shooting the ball differently this year. But I would offer that the efficiency that Dekker can bring you and the defensive stuff could almost be more valuable than what Anderson does. And obviously, you're not paying him $20 million a year to do it. By no means am I suggesting that this is what Houston will do. They won't do that. There is no chance. But Dekker has proven himself to be a viable role player in the NBA. And I honestly believe this, that in 2 years' time, not this season, not next season, but the 2018-19 campaign, we will have Dekker starting over Ryan Anderson. So it's not a great time to try and acquire Sam Dekker in Dynasty after a game like this. But I have been fairly vociferous in my support for him, especially earlier on in the season, and I do believe he can become a fairly consistent fantasy contributor. As for the year, he's ranked outside the top 200s. That's not really impacting any leagues at all. He's getting nice numbers, nice minutes, but it's not translating into great bulk fantasy numbers. And I think that will continue. Again, his big break here came because the Rockets didn't have Ryan Anderson, and secondly, they decided not to play Corey Brewer because there's really no reason to play Corey Brewer in many circumstances. I am a big fan of Decker, but there's no need to go and add him in 12-team leagues or 14-team leagues or probably even 16-team leagues, to be honest. This was a good performance given the role, but the problem is the role won't be there moving forward. He will be back to a 21-minute role, and that puts him in 20-team leagues. That puts him in 18-team leagues. That's probably the zone that we like to see him in, but some really good stuff here from Sam, and just nice to show just some proof of what he can do if he was given an expanded role. So Sammy Decker is your waiver wire line of the night, and of course he is your young gun of the night, given it is his second season. Well, it's if we want to talk about Julius Randle, how saying his rookie season was eliminated from injury, you can say the same for Decker. I believe he played 3 minutes as a rookie due to back issues. So this is pretty much his rookie season. It's his second year, but in reality, in terms of court time, this is it. How many minutes did he actually play last season? That would be a great idea for me to look at that. 6 minutes in 3 games combined last year. So yeah, didn't play a huge amount of court time at all in his rookie season, but obviously getting things going at a pretty decent level this year. On a per 36 basis, he's the 175th ranked player this season. So some good per 36 numbers: 13.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.5 threes, a steal, half a block, 47%. And oddly enough, he's not hitting any free throws, which is something I do believe that he will be able to improve. But Decker was fantastic. The dud of the night, this guy wasn't fantastic, and I wouldn't say it's been a fantastic year for Darren Collison. 8 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists on 4 of 11 shooting. He is, despite the disappointing season, he is still ranked as the 116th player this season, and he still can be a 12-team league guy. I don't 100% think that he is a must-own player, but he still can be in a 12-team league. But honestly, appraise your roster. Is he your 12th best guy? Is he your 13th best guy? You know what that means. If he's in that 13th spot, then he's droppable. Then someone else can probably be streamed in for that spot. Take a flyer on injury availabilities as they occur, and that's where Collison sits. I thought he was in a great spot to get some added usage with Rudy Gay gone, but hasn't translated to anything in the last couple of games. The numbers haven't been really spectacular at all, and he continues to share time with Ty Lawson, which is far from a formula for a successful fantasy campaign, and that's sort of where we're sitting, I guess, with Big Dazza at the moment. He played just 25 minutes in this one, while Ty Lawson played 23. It's basically a split down the middle for minutes, and that is not what we want to know. It's not what we want to see for fantasy points of view. All right, let's head into these 11 games now, talk about them in a little bit of extra detail. The first game we want to take a look at is the Portland Trailblazers. They took on the Boston Celtics. They got a big victory on the road, 127-123. They were down significantly in the third quarter, but some pretty strong runs got them over the line. It did go to overtime. CJ McCollum had a really good game, 35 points in 46 minutes, and did it efficiently on 21 shots. He went 11 of 21 from the field. Not so great from the line, 10 of 13. It's all right, but it's not that great. And he didn't do much in the rebounds and assists area, but getting 3 triples and getting 3 steals is a nice night from CJ. He had been a little bit flat over the last week or so, but good to see him get those numbers back. Dame Lillard had 28 points with 7 assists. And the Blazers, again, they stuck with this new starting lineup. So we had Noah Vonleh starting. We had Evan Turner starting. Turner played 40 minutes. He went 12, 4, and 4. He had a steal and 2 blocks. 40 minutes of Evan Turner is must-own. I don't think he's getting 40 minutes every night, but if he pushes into 31 a night, then you want to own Evan Turner. At this point, he's not worth going and breaking the bank in terms of fab budget or dropping someone valuable to get, but he is going to be an interesting player as we move forward to see exactly how Terry Stotts runs this rotation as we move forward. But it wasn't a curious decision, but it stuck for 2 games in a row here. As for Mo Harkless, he played 13 minutes. He scored 0 points. He had 1 assist. That was his entire line. He was already sort of trending down with the return of Al-Farouq Aminu anyway, and if he's sticking in this bench role, then there's no point in him. Now, don't drop him out of spite, don't drop him out of he's droppable. When I say someone's droppable, it doesn't mean drop them. You never drop someone unless they're a season-ending injury player. You never just drop someone. You should never go into the section and push the minus button on a player. You should never go into a section or push drop player and choose someone. You should drop someone when you're adding someone. That's the best way to do it. Now, if someone is considered droppable, you go and have a look on your waiver wire and go, okay, well, who could I possibly replace this guy there? But if there's no one better, you don't do it. You don't make the drop. You don't go and just drop Mo Harkless because he's droppable. Yeah, he is, but if there's no one replacing him, what is the point? But he's definitely droppable. In 10-team leagues, no doubt in my mind. In 12-team leagues, I think that you can move on. Myers Leonard, yeah, trying to work out what he's going to do is a tough sell. 25 minutes for Myers, 17 and 4 with 4 triples. It came on 6 of 7 shooting, so that accounts for the high scoring. It also accounts for the high minutes. And being able to predict what Terry Stotts does with that front court rotation, whether he plays Ed Davis, whether he plays Myers Leonard, whether he plays more minutes to Noah Vonleh, whatever they do, it's really impossible to know. So good performance from Leonard, can be a fantasy contributor, won't do it often enough. As for Aminu, he was stuck in that bench role, still played 37 minutes though, 11 and 7 with a 1-1, while Noah Vonleh had 8 and 6 with 3 steals in 17 minutes for Vonleh. If Vonleh's going to start, one thing that does guarantee him is at least that he's going to play every night, which is not something that was happening before, and for good reason, because he's not good. But in a 20-team league, in a 30-team league, that improves the value of Vonleh. It doesn't. I think Aminu is still safe where he is, and he is still a hold. It's a different situation to the Turner-Harkless one. Isaiah Thomas continues to make me look stupid. 41 points on 50% shooting. He was 14 of 28 from the field. He had 6 assists. He hit 4 triples. Again, it can't possibly continue. I know it. I know I've kept saying this, but it literally can't continue at this rate. This is an historic run of huge numbers from from Isaiah Thomas, and he keeps it going. Avery Bradley was out again, so we got 41 minutes of Marcus Smart. He had 17, 6 and 6, but in true Marcus Smart style, he was 5 of 15 from the field. He's like a 35% shooter over the last month from the field. So it is really tough to deal with him in a punt field goal percentage in a non-punt field goal percentage situation. In a punt field goal build, he's a must-own player. It's simple as that. 17, 6 and 6 with 2 steals is fantastic. And that's what he does. He rebounds, he gets assists, he gets steals. He does all that stuff and does it inefficiently. But if you're punting field goal percentage, you give zero shits about that. So you should be grabbing him in those scenarios. Jay Crowder, 3-point marksman, was at it again. 16 points with 3 triples and 4 rebounds in his 40 minutes. While Kelly Olynyk went back to 25 minutes. So he's like 25, 25, 25, 28, 12, 25. So just when you feel you're getting a rhythm for Kelly Olynyk, Brad Stevens comes in and goes, you know what, I'm the most frustrating coach in rotations. Let me just muck around with this, and then goes back and gives 25 again to Kelly Olynyk, and he had 10 and 8. Again, production's never the issue with Kelly Olynyk. It's always going to be there. It's just going to be, what are the minutes like? He's a 14-team league player. Amir Johnson played 29 minutes, had 7 points with 2 blocks. That's nice in certain situations only, while Terry Rozier gets the minutes bump with Avery Bradley out 15 points with 3 triples in 22 minutes, while Al Horford's percentages really let him down, but 17, 9 and 5 is a nice night from Big Al. Let's go on to Washington and Detroit. Markieff Morris is a top 40 player over the last 2 weeks. He was added again, 19 and 9, 2 threes, 2 steals, 1 block. He's a clear must-own guy, but it's owned in under 80% of leagues. Obviously, he has to be owned in every league, and he's really rolling. The minutes are huge, the production's big, and the Wizards are playing well. Now, they did lose this one to the Pistons on a tip-in from Marcus Morris at the end. Johnny Wall, 19, 7 and 10 with 2 steals. Braddles Beal, 17, 5 and 4 with 2 steals and a block. Otto Porter, 11 and 7, and for once, not an efficient night from Otto, where he went 4 of 13 from the field. That's been the anomaly for him this season. He's been a guy that's been ridiculous with his percentages, but not happening for him tonight. Marcin Gortat only played the 25 minutes. 12 and 7 with 2 steals. His numbers have been coming down recently, and we're seeing more minutes go to Jason Smith, who scored 16 in 19. He had 4 boards, he hit 2 triples, and he had a block. This is a very, very hot streak for Jason Smith, so don't read a huge amount into it, but the fact that he is playing better and the fact that he is playing more is meaning we don't get 38 minutes of Marcin Gortat already. I thought that the reduction in Gortat's minutes would come when Jan Mahinmi returns, but Mahinmi is still obviously not back, but it's Smith that's cutting into them now, and he's still owning Gortat. We're not really doing anything with Smith outside of 16, 18 team leagues. That's really about it with Jason. Probably more 18 to 20 to be honest. But it does really limit what Gortat's upside can be if they're going to keep him in that 28 to 30 minute role and they feel more comfortable with Smith, because that was the role that he was going to get, I believe, until there was just nobody else around. But now Smith is putting his hand up into that position. I still don't think Smith is a good player, so that might not last. Kelly Oubre had 11 and 4 with 2 steals in his 27 minutes. I'd like to see the Wizards use more Oubre, Porter, Morris as the 3-4-5 combination, eliminating the need for 19 minutes of Jason Smith. And Oubre can have some nights. I'm still not convinced he is a good player, but he's a deeper league guy at this point. For the Pistons, Johnny Lua was back. He came off the bench, but Stan Van Gundy did intimate that he will be back in the starting lineup soon. 25 minutes for Lua, 10 and 5, but did it with the defensive stuff, 2 steals and 2 blocks. I don't think anything really changes here for Lua. If he was a guy that was ownable on your team and in your league before he got injured, then he's a guy that's ownable now. I don't think that this one game off the bench changes anything. I think he's going to go back to playing 29 to 30 minutes in the starting lineup and being the same guy that he was pre-injury. So just if he was ownable then, he's ownable now. Toby Harris played 40 minutes, 18, 9, and 5, really been going fairly well over the last 6 weeks to 2 months, putting up some good numbers, while Marcus Morris had 25 and 11 in 38 minutes. Took him 17 shots in 38 minutes to get there. That's always the case with Marcus, but some strong numbers for him. He's a borderline rest of season 12-team league guy. He's a guy that you want to own now in 12-team leagues, but he's borderline for the rest of the year, in my opinion. Reggie Bullock started with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope out again, 35 minutes for Bullock, 9 and 5 with 3 triples, while Stan Johnson played just the 16 minutes and had 9 points with a 1-1. Hit all 4 of his shots, Stan, so really efficient, but didn't see the big minutes. And with Lua back now, that reduces the ability for Johnson to play close to 30 minutes. We saw the games the other day where Johnson and Bullock were both playing 30 minutes with both KCP and Lua out. Lua back, so Stan's value goes back to being that 16 to 18 or dynasty type of guy, and Bullock is a very deep league sort of a player. Reggie Jackson had 19, 3, and 8 in this one as well. Brooklyn and Charlotte. Lopez, 24, 5, and 4 with 2 blocks. A good performance. Sean Kilpatrick returned from resting and moved into the starting lineup in place of Joe Harris. 13, 4, and 5 with 2 steals and 3 triples in 27 minutes. I do not believe that Sean Kilpatrick is a must-own player in standard leagues. Trevor Booker returned also, 8 and 9 with 2 steals. A good night from Booker, very reminiscent of what we saw through November from him, the rebounding and the steals. He's not a 10-team league must-own guy. He probably is for 12s, but it's not locked in. And Bojan Bogdanovic scored 16 on 12 shots with 4 triples in 28 minutes, more a 14-team leaguer as well. Let's talk Caris LeVert, everybody's flavour of the day or month or week. And I'm a huge Caris LeVert fan, as you know, but this is the perils, I guess, in owning him. Only 18 minutes here in a game where Joe Harris didn't play, in a game where Jeremy Lin was out, and in a game where Justin Hamilton was out. And this is going to be the thing that does limit him, is what Kenny Atkinson does with this rotation, because Atkinson's been frustrating, really, for the entire season. LeVert, 9 points, 4 assists, 2 steals. They're good numbers. They're good per minute numbers, and these are the things that I did talk about with LeVert. Like, he gets assists, he hits threes, he gets steals. He can do all these things, but it's going to come down for minutes, and that's why when I spoke about him yesterday, if you're in first or second, you can afford to wait for him to get a consistent 27 to 28 minute role, which might not ever come. But if you're fighting for a playoff spot, you can't afford this. You can't afford 18-minute, 9-point nights. You can't afford that sort of stuff. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was a bit of a stinker as well, just the 21 minutes, 7, 4, and 2 with a steal. I know if I was coaching the Nets, it'd be 30 minutes of Isaiah Whitehead, it'd be 30 minutes of Rondae, it'd be 30 minutes of Caris. Let's see what these guys can do. Let's see them build a chemistry. Let's see how they work with Brook, and let's get when we get Jeremy Lin back, let's go Lin, LeVert, Hollis-Jefferson, And then you put Booker at the 4 with Lopez at the 5. And let's see how that 5 works and play them big minutes. Kenny Atkinson does not believe that because he thinks you've got to get 24 minutes out of Randy Foy. 11, 2, and 5 for Foy in those 24 minutes. For the Hornets, still no Jeremy Lamb. So Michael Kidd-Gilchrist took full advantage once again. 35 minutes for MKG, 17 and 14 with 2 blocks. It's not all to do with Lamb's absence. Prior to Marco Bellinelli's ankle problem, we were seeing 24 minutes of Kidd-Gilchrist and 30 minutes of Bellinelli because Steve Clifford had this weird thought process in his head that to finish games, we need offense. We don't want any defense, so Bellinelli is the superior option. It appears Clifford has had a rethink of those comments and that theory because Bellinelli is not playing those minutes anymore. Kidd-Gilchrist is playing 30 plus. 17 and 14 with 2 blocks is a big night from MKG. Is he a must-own guy? Well, he's pretty close to it. He's like a top 100 guy over the last couple of weeks. I wouldn't say that he is must-own, though. I think you want to look pretty carefully at it in 12-team leagues, and you want to go and grab him. What do you need? Do you need rebounding, and do you need some defensive numbers? Out-of-position blocks? He's a small forward, remember? Like, he can do those things. If you want scoring, look in a different direction. If you want threes, forget about it. But he can provide out of position rebounding, and it can work for you. So by all means, the minutes are up, and that really helps his value. Batum had 16, 9, and 6 with 4 steals, while Kemba wasn't Kemba's best night, going 6 of 17 for 16 points with 6 assists in his 33 minutes. As for Bellinelli, he dished 5 assists, almost consider that a career high, 14 points in 22 minutes for Bally, while Cody Zeller, after 2 subpar performances with very low minutes, played 31. So that's the first thing I look at and go, great, 31 minutes, this is back where he should be. 12 and 9 with 3 assists and a block on 71% shooting. I'll reiterate it, we know that Zeller needs to be owned everywhere. Also, Roy Hibbert, 2 points. That is back to the Roy Hibbert that we all know and used to love, maybe? Philadelphia and Atlanta, no Joel Embiid, so of course it was a spanking. The Hawks got the victory in 93-110, and that's just par for the course. Jahlil Okafor started, played 30 minutes. I don't know why he goes from DNP CDs to 30 minutes. Surely Nerlens Noel gets those minutes, but apparently not, as Noel saw just 13 minutes. Frustrating stuff there. Okafor 12 and 4 with 3 blocks. I see no situation that you need to own Okafor. Dynasty's fine, fair enough. 12 teams, no. 14 teams, no. 10 teams, no. 16 teams? Well, the guy's not even playing, so no. Maybe you get to 20 teamers or 18 teamers and you go, oh, maybe he gets traded. But as I've said plenty of times before, where's he going that they're going, all right, Jahlil, let's have 30 minutes a night from you? Where is that happening? I don't see him going to a team and them saying, all right, we've just brought in this rookie who can't get minutes on the Sixers. We've brought him in, and he is now the focal point of our offense. Because that's what he needs to be a good fantasy player. And that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Bob Cove, 31 minutes, 15 and 10 with 3 triples, a steal, and a block. Also, heard Lee Ellis on the starters that he also goes down the Bob Cove route with the naming. He calls him Bobby Cove. Lee. It must be an Aussie thing. We are right behind you on the Bob Cove nickname. That's the way to go for Covington. He's still not owned in every league, which is ludicrous. 15 and 10 was a good night there. While Ersan Ilyasova dropped 21 points with 4 assists in his 30 minutes. TJ McConnell, 37 minutes for TJ. In fact, Spanish Chocolate was a DNP CD in this game. You have to own McConnell, 8, 6, and 11 with 3 steals, while Chasen Randall got the backup point guard minutes here. He played 3 of them, and then we had obviously Nick Stauskas playing some extra minutes there at point. Stauskas played 35 minutes, had 7, 6, and 3, didn't shoot the ball well, and he's looked a lot better this season, but it's not enough to trouble the majority of fantasy players. You know who's good? No, let me rephrase that. You know who looks like they could be good? Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot. 21 minutes for Luwawu-Cabarrot, 10 points, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 triple. I've spoken about him quite a bit recently, so I think I had a fairly lengthy discussion on him yesterday. So if you want to hear more about that, go back and check out the Philadelphia game summary yesterday. But I do think that he's going to be an impactful player at some point in the next 2 to 3 years, and he is a very nice dynasty guy. He is pushing forward and he is demanding more minutes with the way that he plays. He's not going into Brett Brown and saying, give me the minutes, man. Come on, you got to give them to me. He is demanding it with the way that he plays. As for Noel, just the 13 minutes for Nerlens, 4 and 3. It's getting real tough to hold him, to be honest. I A trade of Okafor doesn't help him at all. It has no impact on him whatsoever. And if he gets traded, maybe he gets out. He's not like Okafor. He doesn't need to go to a team and say, give me 30 minutes and make me the focal point of the offense. He can go to a team and play 27 minutes and be the backbone of a defense, which is what he's good at, and still be useful in fantasy leagues. And that's sort of the only hope you've got of Noel being a must-own guy at this point. But okay to sort of keep holding him. Now, Dario Saric really struggled, 3 points in his 15 minutes. For the Hawks, looking at this Hawks box score, they got the victory comfortably. There's not a lot to look at and go, oh wow, look at all these great things happening. Yeah, there's good nights. Paul Millsap, 22 and 10 with 2 blocks and a 3. That's really good on 64% shooting. Dennis Schroeder had 15 with 9 assists, 2 steals and a block. That's a good night, but it's basically just where these guys are at. This is just who they are. Kent Bazemore had a good Kent Bazemore night. Maybe I'll phrase it that way. 16 points for Kent. He had 2 triples. He had 2 assists in 24 minutes. That's good Kent. Good Kent is fine for 12-10 leagues. It just doesn't show up often enough. Timmy Hardaway, 12, 3, and 6 with 2 steals for Timmy in 27 minutes, and he is a top 100 guy over the last couple of weeks. Is Tim Hardaway a must-own player? I don't think he is. He's very much up and down, and it does rely upon his scoring. But his shooting percentages are up this season, and that is helping him become a more reliable guy. He's a must-own 14-team league guy, and if he's owned in 12-team leagues, I reckon it's okay. I'd be definitely okay. In a lot of cases, I think that owning him is a better option than Jalil Okafor, and the ownership percentages are very, very different. Malcolm Delaney had 13 points, while Dwight Howard had 13 and 15 in 32 minutes. Not much else to talk about. That little Mike Dunleavy resurgence to start the year, that's not happening anymore. 4 points in 18 minutes, but he's still getting the minutes just to deprive us of Taurean Prince and DeAndre Bembry, and also to deprive those guys of development, and to deprive the Hawks fans of seeing their number 1 picks or their first-round picks from showing anything on the court, so we can get Mike Dunleavy's corpse out there for 18 minutes. I still believe that coaching and rotational decisions are far from optimal in the NBA. My speaking level is far from optimal at the moment, clearly. Speaking of suboptimal coaching, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. I could talk about this for an hour, I reckon. I won't, but I could. The Bucks made a couple of changes to the starting lineup. Jabari Parker was benched so that Thon Maker could start. The reason? Jabari Parker violated a team rule. Okay. You know what this does though, Jason? It punishes Jabari, but how much does it punish him? You played him 32 minutes off the bench, so you cost him a couple of minutes. All right, so okay, he gets the ignominy of being benched for violating a rule. Punishes your team, because then you lose consistency, you lose pairings at times, you're not a good coach as it is, Jason, so you're losing some rotational consistency, probably affects the team. It punishes the fans who want to see a team in sync, who want to see a team playing well. What's the point of it? Punish him in a different way. Fine him. What's the point of sitting him out? If you're going to punish him for a game, don't play him. Don't just muck things up for the sake of mucking things up. Then we had Malcolm Brogdon move to the bench because, we've got to get Dellavedova going. Or Jason, we could just keep the better player playing. Why don't you come out there and say, you know what, we're just going to start Rashad Vaughn now, play him 35 minutes a night so we can get him going. What's the point of that? It's probably time to give Steve Novak a start because, he hasn't really been getting anything going, so we need to start him so we can get him going. No, you don't. Now, Dellavedova played well. 36 minutes, 15 points, 7 assists with 2 triples. A very good performance from Delly. Brogdon still got 30 minutes, and they played alongside each other, which is something I can definitely get behind because I don't rate Tony Snell. But 1 of 10 shooting for Brogdon, 4, 2, and 2, and you can't help but think that Brogdon, who's going out there as a second-round rookie, exceeding all expectations, playing well, and then kid comes up to him and goes, man, you're playing so well, you're going to the bench. And you don't think that affects the confidence of a guy? And as I always say, when a coach does a dumb thing, I am glad that the team loses. They lost to the Heat, 109-97. I am glad they lost. The next thing they did, Greggy Munro, 17 minutes, 9 and 6 for Greg. That's 3 consecutive games of under 20 minutes a game. You know what the Bucks' record is in those 3 games? 0-3. So you know what, Jason? It's not working. It's not entirely because Munro's not getting minutes, but John Henson is the worst player. Play your best players. Simple. And this bullshit excuse, oh, I've got to bring Brogdon off the bench because I want to run him with Munro in the second unit. This is not hockey lines. This is not first line, second line. This is not 5 guys in, 5 guys out. This is not how this works. You can get these guys minutes together. This is not how any of this shit works. It just doesn't. Sorry. You know what it works for? It works for the last 4 minutes of the first quarter when these guys come in. But then everything is all over the place. And starters play with bench guys, and bench guys play with starters. This is ludicrous thinking. You got to still hold Munro, but he's outside the top 200 the last couple of weeks because of shit like this. Because in his last 5 games, he's played 21 minutes and under. And I believe the Bucks are 0-5 in those 5 games. Coincidence? You can be the judge of that. As for Henson, 11-9 with a block. Yeah, 16-team leagues, I'd add him. 14-team leagues, sure. 12-team leagues, no chance. No, he's just not good. At least we didn't see Miles Plumlee, because that would have got me frustrated. You know who else was playing well, and now isn't? Michael Beasley, who played 10 minutes for 5 points. Cool. Like, Jason Kidd is not a good coach. He is not a good coach. Miami, Goran Dragic, 25, 1-6, 33 minutes. There was no Tyler Johnson in this one. There was no Joshie Richardson. So Dion Waiters, of course, he had a big game. 33 points on 19 shots for Dion. Very efficient, hyper efficient, in fact. 3 assists and 5 triples for Dion. He's a 14-team league guy at the moment, but this was a situation where there was 2 backup guards out, and we had him hitting his shots, things which won't happen every single game. So nothing to get overly interested in about with Dion Waiters there. Hassan Whiteside, 16 and 15 with 2 blocks. It's almost looking like a standard line from him these days. While Wayne Ellington got 35 bench minutes and scored 15 points with 2 steals. He is only to be used as a streaming option, and even then it's a 50-50 chance of it doing anything. Luke Babbitt continues to start. He had 5 points in 18 minutes, while Jimmy Johnson. Yeah, he struggled with his shot again. 3 of 12. Still had 3 boards, 6 assists, and 1 steal, and still should be owned in all leagues, but that's 2 poor offensive performances in a row for Jim. While Scooter Magruder started, he played 18 minutes and scored 6 points. I would say there's no reason for Scooter to be starting, but who else is there, really? On a game like this, there's no one else that really deserves to be starting, so I'm okay with it. He's been starting a lot of the year, and he's not very good. Let's move on to the next game, Phoenix and the New York Knicks. Eric Bledsoe, he was a monster again, 23, 5 and 7 with a block, with a 3. Continues to be one of the more underrated players in the NBA, in my opinion. While Devin Booker scored 26 points and actually had some peripheral stats. 3 triples, 1 steal, 1 block, and went 48% from the field. So good night from Devin. While TJ Warren, who played 40 minutes the game before, only scored 4 points in 29 minutes, taking 6 shots only. Yeah, look, TJ needs to get more shots than that, whether it's him, whether it's the team, it's both. But we don't need to see 20 minutes of Brandon Knight chucking up 12 shots. We don't need PJ Tucker taking 4 more shots than TJ Warren. Now, Tucker was alright, 15 points with 3 steals and 2 triples. And the Suns did get a big win on the road against the Nets, but still some frustration with Warren. I still think that he should be owned. Alex Len, no need to hold on to him anywhere. Under 10 minutes for 4 points, while Tyson Chandler had 9 and 16 in 32. Chandler is a guy that should be owned in the majority of formats. Marquise Chris played 22 minutes. He scored 15 points. He had 5 rebounds. He had 3 steals and a block. So, of course, that means you should limit him to 22 minutes. Earl Watson's a terrible coach. You've got this guy in there to start. Just let him go. Especially when he's playing well. Why don't you just play him 27 minutes, 28 minutes, instead of limiting him at 21? He makes dumb decisions, yes, and some of the time he's not worth starting because he's not good or he's not worth playing the minutes. But when he's having a good game, why don't you just let him go? As for Brandon Knight, no reason to hold Brandon Knight in 12-team leagues either. For For the Knicks, Melo 31, 7 and 6 with 5 triples, and Porzingis was back starting. But Jeff Hornacek, the old wily Jeff Hornacek, before Kristaps was going to be, we were going to start him at centre, play Melo at the 4. That's what we were going to do. That's what was going to happen. But then, Kristaps was injured, so he couldn't do it. All right, cool, Jeff. So Kristaps is back, so of course he started at centre. No, he didn't, because Joakim Noah did. Because of course, why wouldn't you go back to a situation that's ridiculous? Why wouldn't you do it? So the Knicks went back to their starting lineup that they had for the first 35 games of the year. Courtney Lee was back in over Ron Baker. Joakim Noah is in. Don't say shit and give excuses for it when it makes no sense. We would have started Porzingis, but he was injured at centre. Well, he's not injured now. Start him at centre. Or you were just talking out of your ass because everybody tells you that's what the best thing is to do, but you refuse to do it. Porzingis had 14 points. He had a steal, a block. He only had 1 rebound. It wasn't a great Kristaps night, but the Achilles is fine. He played the 33 minutes, so that's great. Joakim Noah played 20 minutes, had 0 points, missed all 4 of his shots, did grab 15 rebounds and had a block, but if he's playing 20 minutes a night, then 12-team leagues, you can look elsewhere. Derrick Rose, I love the Derrick Rose watch. 0 threes, 0 steals again. 26, 3 and 5 for Rosie on 12 of 26 shooting. So a good night, but we know his limitations, while Courtney Lee had 13, 4 and 3 in 37 minutes. So his benching lasted basically 1 game. Yes, he was on the bench for 3 of them, but the other 2 of those games, I believe he played 30 minutes anyway, the same sort of playing time, while Ron Baker had 3 points in 19 minutes. So at least Baker's still in the rotation. I do joke about this a lot, about Hornacek and the backup centers. You have a good game, therefore you must be benched the next game. But it's literally what happens. Billy Hernan Gomez, double-double, DMPCD, and then back to 14 minutes, 6 and 8. Kyle O'Quinn, starting, 9 minutes. Big game, 5 minutes. What is the point of this shit? What's the point? 0 points for Cock. 1 rebound, 1 steal, 5 minutes of playing time. And Justin Holiday, 5 minutes of playing time. Knicks lost. Good. Just, when you see a pattern like this backup center thing and you make a joke of it, and then Hornacek just keeps propping it up by doing the same shit that's predictably stupid, and it continues to happen. Like, how can you have that in your... Does he tell these guys, mate, next time you have a good game, probably not going to play the next one? Is that what he tells them? Because it actually sounds like that way, because you hear the comments come from Brandon Jennings or Courtney Lee who have got no confidence in rotations. That feels like what it is. Now, you had a good one, time to give someone else a go at a good one. Cool. Come on, Jeff. Work it out.
My name is Jeff.
All right. Houston and Memphis. Talked about Jimmy, talked about Sammy. Let's talk about this center situation. Clint Capella off the bench again. He played 16 minutes, 5 and 4 with a block. The table, Montrezl Harrell played 16 minutes, 6, 2 and 2. Nene off the bench played 16 minutes. So there's your nightmare. This is exactly what I feared that would happen, that they would all play 16 minutes. And it's exactly what happened here, making it really, really tough to own them. Capella is the number 1 guy to me, Harrell's number 2, and Nene is 3rd. But this sort of thing, I fear, is going to be something that does continue. You'll get a night where Capella goes big and has 22 and 11. You'll get a night where the table goes big and has 13 points with 5 blocks. You'll very occasionally have a Nene game. But, D'Antoni is going to do this, and it's going to be frustrating. I still think that you want to own Capella in a punt free throw situation, but if nothing plays out over the next 2 weeks, there's not much point holding on to him in that sort of a scenario. Eric Gordon had 21 and 5 assists in his 30 minutes off the bench, while Pat Bev had 7, 8, and 4 in 30 minutes there as well. Trevor Ariza wasn't a great night. 1 of 8 from the floor. 3 points with 10 rebounds and 2 assists for Trev in 36 minutes. While Corey Brewer still got 24 minutes and wasn't great. 6, 5, and 2 in those 24 minutes. On to the Grizzlies, who they got smashed in the end, 119-95. Marc Gasol had 32 points, 2 steals, 3 blocks, and 2 triples. So a huge night from Gasol. Actually hurt you from the free throw line in a big way, going 55% on 11 attempts, which is very un-Gasol-like, but otherwise it's a pretty big night from him. The best thing about this game is that Chandler Parsons played 22 minutes. Yes, it wasn't 18 minutes, and he went 12, 2 and 4 with 3 steals. This is why I like Chandler Parsons. This is why I think that probably when we get to February, he will be a top 50 player. Holding on to him has been extraordinarily hard. And if you cut bait with him, no issue whatsoever, because the 2 months, the 6 weeks of 17-minute 0-point performances is not helping you make the playoffs. But grabbing him at the right time is going to be important, I think, for your team moving forward. And this increase in the minutes is very, very important. I think that we probably don't get full-blown Chandler Parsons until probably post-All-Star. That would be my guess. But it's going to be big. And this was just an inkling of what he can still do. And that's really impressive. Mick Conley, 15, 4 and 6 in his 35 minutes, while JaMychal Green had 7 and 9 in 30. And Zebo went back to not a lot, 11 and 8 in 24 minutes. And just, again, further reiterating, while those guys, to me, are still just 14-team league players. Jimmy Ennis went back to the bench with Chandler back. 28 minutes for Jim, 3 and 3. Still a good performance. While Vincey Carter, he'd been getting almost 30 minutes a night. Vince, he went back to under 20 and had 8 and 3 in this game. Let's move on to the San Antonio Spurs and the Cleveland Cavaliers. This was an overtime victory for the San Antonio Spurs, while Kawhi Leonard had a career-high 41 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 3 triples, 15 of 30 from the field. A real monster night from Kawhi. Another 8 of 8 from the line. He has taken his game up to big, big levels. I was wrong about the starting center position. As I said, 2 games that Pau Gasol rested early in the season, Dwayne Dedmon was the starter. And I thought that David Lee might have been just the starter on an emergency basis on that late last-second switch. Turns out that Pop wants to continue to go with the David Lee, LaMarcus Aldridge frontcourt. It sounds so yuck in principle, but Lee had another big game, 14 and 11 with a block in 36 minutes. Go and grab him. If that's the way that Pop wants to run things, which it looks like it does, grab him. Aldridge had 16, 12, and 6 with 2 blocks in 42 minutes. And we had a Kyle Anderson sighting out of nowhere. 2 points, but this is Kyle Anderson. 4 boards, 1 assist, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. Chalk this up to fluke. Dan Green didn't do a huge amount. We had no Tone Parker again. DeJounte Murray. Now this kid's going to be good. He's going to be good. 22 minutes for DeJounte. 14, 2, and 6. I will reiterate, I do think that he is the next San Antonio Spurs starting point guard, but it is not until the 2018-19 season. I think that Parker is back again next season. I think that Mills probably goes to another team. DeJounte moves into Mills's role and takes over the starting role after that. That is very important for Dynasty League players who are building for that sort of a time frame, that Murray can be that player, but he has been very impressive for about the last 4 to 5 weeks. Mills had 13 with 5 assists in 31 minutes. So it was a good night from Mills, and Murray obviously was impressive in this one as well. For the Cavs, LeBron 29, 6 and 7. Kyrie 29, 3 and 9 with 2 steals. Big nights from those guys. And Kevin Love returned. Wasn't good, but he returned. 4 of 15 for 13 and 11 with 3 3-pointers. So a decent night from Lovey there. Tristan Thompson played big minutes. 39 minutes for Tomo. 14 and 12 with a block. If you own Tristan Thompson, you know why you own him. If he's on your waiver wire, then he probably doesn't fit your team. Simple as that. Iman Shumpert, 38 minutes for Shump, 11, 3 and 2, 2 steals and 3 threes. Been fantastic in the starting lineup. I reckon you got to look at him in 12-team leagues. I don't say that he's a must-own guy, but he's hitting threes, he's getting steals, he's doing it efficiently, and he's providing a key role for this team. I think you've got to look at it. See if it fits. Absolutely no problem with grabbing Shumpert. As for Kyle Korver, 22 minutes, 6 points. There's no reason. He's owned in 65% of leagues. That is more than Cody Zeller. It is more, and that's not. It's the same as Bob Cove. Come on, guys. There's no reason to own Kyle Korver in 10-team leagues. There's no reason to own Kyle Korver in 12-team leagues. It's just not going to happen. The Indiana Pacers and not the Chicago Bulls, the Utah Jazz. That's the one. Thad Young didn't have multiple steals. I'm sure you're really disappointed, but still 19 and 9 with a steal, a block, 2 triples on 73% shooting. A good night from Thad, while Jeffy Teague went 19, 4 and 7 with 3 steals. Big numbers from those guys. We also had a Monte Ellis sighting who scored 15 and 4 with 2 steals in 33 minutes. Chalk that one up to a little bit of fluke. I wouldn't be rushing to grab Monte, while Miles Turner, he did well for a matchup against Rudy Gobert, 13-7, but still not a fantastic night, while Paulie George, got fouled out and then got ejected, 19-4-2. And I know some people don't like my opinions on Paul George. I apologize. I just don't like the guy. I just think that he just really rubs me the wrong way on a personal level, and I just don't see him as having a great temperament. I know you can say the same about Boogie, but he's not as talented as Boogie. He just rubs me the wrong way. He still has, and I said this the other day, like, you think how disappointing he's been. He hasn't been that disappointing. He's been pretty much where he needs to be in that mid-first or mid-second round range, and that's sort of where he is. But he is ceding a lot more usage to guys like Teague and Young, and I didn't think that he would do that this season, and that is happening, and it's impacting his numbers. CJ Miles scored 6 in 28 minutes off the bench, while little dog Glenn Robinson III had 1 steal. He started, he played 15 minutes, and maybe a change is coming there. Maybe we move Monte Ellis back in. I don't know. Regardless of if it happens, Ellis is not someone to go and grab if he comes back as the starter. George Hill, revenge game. 34 minutes for Georgie. 36-5 with 3 triples. This is the George Hill we saw at the start of the season. Huge night from him, while Gordie Hayward had 27. Rudy Gobert, yeah, look, he has been really fantastic. 8 of 10 from the field, 19 and 11. While Alec Burks had easily his best game of the season, scoring 13 points in 19 minutes with 4 rebounds. Don't get overly excited about Burks. Maybe look at him in 18 or 20 team leagues. I wouldn't be getting too excited. Joe Ingles played 33 minutes, so the minutes were still there. The production wasn't. 2 points, but you still like 4 rebounds. You like 6 assists. You like 3 steals. You like a block. Good numbers from Joe. Absolutely, he is a 12-team league guy for now. Derek Favors, I talked about him extensively yesterday, saying all his numbers were fairly on par, apart from minutes and shooting percentage, and it happened again. 24 minutes for Derek, 8 points, still had 7 boards, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, but only 4 of 7 from the field, only 2 of 4 from the line. Like, this is what's really impacting Derek. I still think that you have to keep owning him, and it feels like it's only a matter of time, but it just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and he's been a massive source of frustration, no doubt about that. The Sacramento Kings and the Chicago Bulls. Boogie Cousins, 42-14, 2 blocks, 2 triples. Yeah, unsurprisingly, the Bulls couldn't handle him. The Bulls did get the victory, but it was a big Boogie night. Costa Koufos started again. That was an unintentional pun. 25 minutes for Costa, 7 and 6 with a steal and a block, while Aaron Aflalo, this is as Aaron Aflalo as it gets, 9 points in 35 minutes. He did have 4 assists and a steal and a block, but you're looking at Aflalo as a 16-team league guy. The replacements of Rudy Gay, nothing happening. Garrett Temple, 8-3-3 with 2 steals. Fine, 14-team leagues. Matty Barnes, 21 minutes, 3-3. If you grabbed him, piss him off. Get rid of him. Leave him for 16-teamers. Anthony Tolliver, 25 minutes, 6 points and 2 triples. The production is being spread amongst 3 guys, and none of them are must-own 10-team league guys. None of them are must-own 12-team league guys, although Temple can have a spot. And you look at Tolliver as maybe a 14 and Temple as a 14 must-own. Bill Cauley-Stein played 30 minutes, 5-4, but cool. And Ty Lawson had 23 minutes, 8, 3, and 6 for Lawson. Like Collison, you could consider him in a 12-team league, but I think he's more suited for a 14-team league scenario. For the Bulls, Dwayne Wade, a big night from Wadey, 36-4, 3 steals, 4 blocks. That is a huge defensive performance from Wade. Really fantastic. And he'd been slumping in a big way, but that's a big line. While Jim Butler had 23, 5, and 7. The rest of the Bulls' box score, it's fairly confusing. Paul Zipser had 13 points in 23 minutes, and it looks like that Zipser is a part of the rotation now. Jaron Grant, not in it. Denzel Valentine, not in it. Bob Portis, not in it. Doug McDermott, just 21 minutes. So all of the Bulls' past first-round draft picks, plus the ones they traded for, are doing jack shit. What a time to be alive. I do like Zipser. I talked about him a lot in the pre-draft process. I think he can be a useful 9th or 10th man of the NBA, and that's not going to have much of an impact outside of 20 or 30-team leagues, but he's showing it earlier than what I anticipated. Nick Mirotic had 11-5 in 22 minutes. We'd love more minutes. They're just not coming. Leave him for 14-team leaguers, while Taj had 7 points in 29. Rajon Rondo's bad. He had 0 points in 6 minutes, 4 assists. Did not take a single shot. Did not take a single free throw, which is not a surprise. Rondo, 60% ownership, Rondo. No, don't hold him in 10-team leagues. Don't hold him in 12-team leagues. If you're holding him in those leagues, I want a written excuse. I want to know why. Why are you still holding him? There is no reason to. He should have been cut weeks ago. Even in a 14-team league, you can probably do better. Mick Carter-Williams, I don't really think there's any need to hold on to Carter-Williams in 12s either. 20 minutes for Carter-Williams, or as the Bulls announcers call him, Michael Carter, 2 and 7 in 20 minutes. And just another reason the Bulls announcers are the worst. How can you be as unprofessional to not know the names of your players on your own team? Okay, some people might give them a pass for not knowing the names of players on other teams. I will not, because it's your friggin' job to know them and to be able to pronounce them, Stacey King. You can't pronounce Adetokounmpo. You must have some sort of learning disability to not be able to do that. But to not know the name of your own players is horrible. It's horrendous. His name is Michael. His name is not Michael Carter. His surname is not Carter. It is Carter Williams. His name is not Michael Carter. Neil. Doug McDermott continues to be a joy. 3 points in 21 minutes for Dougie McDirt. All right, the next game we look at, the Clippers, the last game of the night. The Clippers and the Denver Nuggets. Unfortunately, the Denver Nuggets were not able to score 125 points for the fourth consecutive game, I believe. They topped out at 123 as they pulled the pants down of the Los Angeles Clippers by 25 points. Now, Doc Rivers, just another coach, just trying to get too smart with things. He made another change to his starting lineup. He put Mo Spates in, starting next to DeAndre Jordan, moved Austin Rivers down to the 1, put Luke Marmute in at the 3, and moved Ray Felton to the bench. Didn't work, Doc. Pants pulled down. Now, Mo Spates did well. 18 points in 28 minutes. Didn't do a huge amount. Had 7 of 10 shooting. Good stuff from Mo. And he is a 14-team league guy. DeAndre Jordan could not do as he did the other day, 14 and 13 in 27 minutes. And Austin Rivers had 16, 2 and 5. You've obviously still got to own Austin. You still own Ray Felton. He played 30 off the bench, 14, 3 and 3. And this lineup did not work. Obviously, you got killed by the Nuggets. I can easily see them going back to the Felton, Reddick, Rivers 1-2-3 combination, playing Marmute at the 4. Just some weird shit from Doc. Play Wes Johnson. He's probably your best 4 on the team. Yeah, he did play 25 minutes here and struggled, but I do think that he is a good option. Jamal Crawford had 7 assists on 3 of 13 shooting, 8 points. Jamal Crawford's owned in 41% of leagues. I hope that they're all 18-team leagues. Maybe 16. He has been very, very bad this year. And just a reminder, the Clippers did give him a huge contract in the offseason. Huge. Onto the Nuggets. Nick Jokic only played 21 minutes here, had some foul issues, but still, 19 and 10, 2 threes, 3 assists, 73% from the field. Be still my beating heart. The Rooster had 18, 4 and 2, while Fart and Will Barton had 18, 3 and 3 in his 29 minutes, and Wilson Chandler returned from his death in the family, 18 and 7 in 23 bench minutes. Ken Fareed started, played 13 and 7 in 24 minutes for Ken. I think that he's a guy you want to be dealing with in 14-team leagues. Now, Manny Moutier suffered a back issue. He's already been ruled out of Sunday's action. With Moutier out, we get more Jameer Nelson, who had 6, 2, and 8 in 29 minutes. We also are likely to get a little bit of extra Jamal Murray, who had 5 points with 3 assists. Nelson's the ad, but I don't think that Moutier is going to be out very long term, maybe 2-3 games, and that might be enough for Nelson. So short-term streaming, that's why I talk about, who's your guy that's your 13th player. You move on from them, grab Nelson for 2-3 games, move on to the next bloke, move on to the next bloke, move on to who's got a good matchup on a one-game basis, rather than hold someone whose value sticks at 130 all season. You go, yeah, but my league has 150 players, so 130 is ownable. Yeah, but is it really? Because I reckon you get better value from streaming in the bloke that's got the short-term 2-3 game value than holding on to a guy. That's why when I look at must-own guys, the way I generally approach it, and it's not always the case, but I generally approach it, is if I've got 156 players rostered, 12-team league, 13-man rosters, 10 active spots, then the 10 active spots are my must-owns. 12 teams, 10 of those, 120, rough number. Top 120, must-own. You sit at 140, you're not must-own. You sit at 150, you're not must-own. You sit at 135, yeah, you're on the borderline. But that 120, that active spots times number of teams, that's the cutoff I sort of give for must-ownness as a general rule in my head when looking at my teams. Yusuf Nurkic had a big game, 20 points, 12 and 5 in those 20 minutes, getting that extra run with Jokic not playing as much. Good performance. It's going to need a trade, obviously, for him to become useful. Lots of do I stash Yusuf Nurkic questions. Can you deal with a 0 for a month? Because that's what it's going to take. The trade deadline, we're talking about it being the 23rd of February, I believe. We're a month away from that. Can you afford zeros or virtual zeros for a month? If you can, fine. Because again, you've probably got less than 50% of chance of Nurkic either getting traded and then going to a situation that plays him 27 minutes. So you've got a low chance of it happening, and dealing with a 0 for a month, it might not be possible. So it's all to do with your individual situation. Stashing seems great in theory, and I get questions, can you give me your top 10 guys to stash for post All-Star break production? Who's going to break? Look, there's just so many factors about this that stashing them in general, doesn't work. In general. Plenty of people can give me an example. I stashed this guy and it worked out well and I won my league. But then I could also find 10 stories of people stashing them and it didn't do shit. Once we get to the start of February 4, February 10, February 6, that sort of zone, stashing is a good value. Stashing through the All-Star break is brilliant. Let's just grab guys. Let's grab a few guys. Who might get traded? Let's do it then. The week before that, grab them then. 4 weeks out, probably not. Because again, it's not 4 weeks got to deal with a 0 because of the All-Star. We're talking maybe 3 weeks of action. You got to deal with a 0. But can you afford it? Can you afford a 0 on your roster? Most times the answer is no. And that does it for the wrap-up of all of the action from Saturday's games. I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to be back to talk about the 4 games that we've got coming up for Sunday in DFS. We're back. Let's talk perfect DFS from Saturday. On FanDuel, Kyrie at 48.1 and Georgie Hill at 45.7. Shooting guard, CJ McCollum 47.9 and Dwayne Wade at 55.2. Small forward Marcus Morris 43.7 and Sammy Dekker 38.8. At power forward, Marquise Chris 28 points and LaMarcus Aldridge 42.4. And at center, Boogie at 67.3 for a total of 417.1. And that used $49,300. On DraftKings, Georgie Hill 48, Dion Waiters 44.25, Marcus Morris 47.75, Sammy Dekker 42, Aldridge at 45, Dwayne Wade at 56.5, Boogie at 71.5, and MKG rounds it out at 40.5 for a total of 395.5, and that cost all $50,000. Now, before we get into these games, it's a shit slate. There is 4 games. They are spread throughout the day. That is far from the recipe for a good DFS day. We have got one game starting at 1 p.m. We have got one game starting at 3:30 p.m. We have got one game starting at 6 p.m. and one game starting at 7 p.m. It is a shit slate. Thankfully, the later games is not too much in terms of injury we need to pay attention to, but stuff can always sneak up on us. We've already had Emmanuel Mudiay ruled out for the late game, but playing a 4-game slate that stretches from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. is not a good idea. Limit your exposure if you play at all. On the Aussie sites, I'm not even doing the picks of the day because the contests include 2 games. It includes the Phoenix-Toronto and Denver-Minnesota. Don't play. Sorry if you're listening and you work for Moneyball or DraftStars. Today is not a good day to play. Someone has to win the contest, sure, that is true, but being able to control if you win is a lot harder, and it comes down more to luck in these scenarios than research, ability, structure, process, anything like that. So yes, someone does have to win, and if you're all about flipping coins, that's a situation to play a 2-game slate. It's just not an optimal scenario. So again, I'm not doing a picks of the day for the Aussie sites today. I will still break down all of these games. And also, the Aussie sites, like Moneyball, has got a 4-game slate in one of their contests, but not their main ones, with all 4 of them. But of course, with the first game starting at 4 a.m. in the morning here, I'm not sure how many people are going to be up to check for last-minute information before that game tips off. It is a day to lose money, and I'm sure most of you aren't in it for that. Let's talk Golden State at Orlando. The Warriors are favoured by 13.5, and the total is 224 points here. I don't think that Evan Fournier is playing. I've got him as doubtful, where CJ Wilcox is questionable. Now, Wilcox could get some minutes with Fournier and Meeks both out if he's ready to go, but he's not going to be the major beneficiary. Now, Frank Vogel, as always, it's always the shit coaches. Frank, will you make any changes to your starting lineup? We'll see. Yeah, well, maybe. We'll see. I'll have to let you know later. You're still shit. You're not tricking anyone. It's not fixed. I'm sure the Warriors don't come in and they get ready to tip off and they go, whoa, what? DJ Augustine's starting and CJ Watson isn't. How can we possibly play? Frank, you did it again. No one thinks that. It's the shit teams that do this, and you still lose. It doesn't do anything. Sorry, I've been very ranty today. But all right, let's talk this game. DJ Augustine's at 3,600. Speaking of DJ Augustine, at 3,600, he's definitely worth having a look at. No problem with that. 4,000 on DraftKings. That's a $700 price rise on DraftKings, so that's not all that interesting. But he definitely has GPP upside because someone's going to get those minutes. Maybe it's not Watson. Maybe it is the 3 guys who are competing for these minutes. CJ, DJ, CJ. That's a weird combination. Lots of initials. I'll tell you what I like in a name. I like a name that's initials that doesn't have J in it. So many initials have J. I like a name without J. CJ, DJ, TJ, PJ. I like names without a J. And my name starts with J. JJ. I want names without J's. OG Onanubi. What's his Onanubi? How do you say that? The guy from Indiana that just hurt his knee. I never know how to pronounce his name. I'll have to research that. OG. Totally behind that as a name. Love the initials. DJ, CJ, TJ, PJ? No. That's a misdirection from me. All right, let's try again. DJ Augustine, 3,600. Yeah, there is some upside there in a tournament, especially if they announce him as the starter. Lord Alfred Payton at 6,200. We know Steph's defense is not going to be too much of an issue. He's going to have to get some extra playing time with Augustine playing some more at the 2 as well. So I think that Alfred is a fairly solid guy to look at. 6,100 for him on DraftKings. The projections don't really love him, but his recent form does. And I do think the scenario really does suit him here. This is a decent spot for Alfred. And again, with only 4 games on, you're going to be looking for guys who can actually produce, and it's not going to be all about situation. It's going to be just who's going to get me the most numbers without having to nitpick between what's a good situation, what's a bad situation. As for Steph, he's at 9,000. There are some other high-priced guys around, obviously Durant, Draymond, some other high-priced guys in some of the other games, Towns, Jokic, Lowry, DeRozan, all these guys. So Steph is far from a must-play on a scenario like this. It is a marginally negative spot against Orlando. He's got a terrific record against the Magic, though, but I don't feel confident playing Steph Curry at $9,000 where he's at FanDuel. At 87 on DraftKings, yeah, that's okay for me. The three-pointers really help him. He's averaging 46 across the last 5. That is fine. FanDuel, he's just struggled to reach value for the majority of this season. At shooting guard, Clay's at 6,200. He's one of the more inconsistent players in terms of DFS results so far this season. So you know what that means. That means that we look at him as a GPP guy who can go off, or a guy who can drop 24 and be a real disappointment at that salary. So yeah, no love for him, really. As for CJ Watson, who started that last game, played 31 minutes, had 14 points. Cool. On DraftKings, he's at 3,300, so that gives me a little bit more hope that maybe he can at least get like 20 points, maybe. And at 3,300, that would be great. But over on FanDuel, where he's priced at 4,000, he gets 20, which is almost best case scenario. Then he reaches value. So he is a definite no-go for me on FanDuel. As for Hazonia, he had 10 points in 13 minutes. Now, whether Frank Vogel's trickery means we're going to get some more Hazonia in there, who knows? But my faith in him, with Klay Thompson probably guarding him, it shouldn't be very high, and neither should yours. Small forwards, Aaron Gordon, 5,200. Really putting up some nice numbers. Look, nothing spectacular, but nice. He's averaging 26 over the last 5, which is really good at that salary. On DraftKings, I'm a little less interested in it, where he's at 5,700. That's a little bit high. But on FanDuel, I think he's a really good play at that $5,200 price point. Kev Durant at 10,600. I feel pretty good that I'm getting 50 points out of Durant here. I think that's what he should be able to bring in. He's at 10-3 on DraftKings again. Averaging 58 over the last 3, 61 the last 3 times he's played the Magic. So feeling fairly good about putting Gordon in. Not Gordon. Well, I feel good about Gordon on FanDuel, but I feel good about Durant on both sites as being a guy that you can build some squads around. Jeff Green had a big one in the last one. He's at 3,800. Absolutely, he is a GPP option. Trusting Jeff Green's another story, but in a GPP situation where some of the scoring punch is gone and 2 of the shooting guards are out of there, then he can get some extra playing time and some extra shots up. Draymond's at 8,200. I really like that. I don't know how much I don't know how much actual upside there is in Draymond, but I feel pretty good about him getting 40 plus, 8,000 on DraftKings. The same story. While Serge Ibaka at 6,100. I do not like Serge in such a negative matchup. I can't get behind him. DraftKings maybe at 6,000, but not really feeling Serge, unfortunately. At centre, Nick Vucevic, 6,700. We've seen centres have tremendous problems against the Warriors for the majority of this season. Putting Vucevic in pick and rolls could really limit what he can do, and we might see some more Bismack. So I would lean to Nick as a GPP-only type of guy, but the situation does not play into his favour really at all. Zaza Pachulia, I think he's a decent cash play. He's at 4,200 on FanDuel. He is at 3,800 on DraftKings. He's averaging 23 points on DraftKings in the last 3 games. At 3,800, if you give me 23 points, then I can put Durant in, I can put Jokic in, I can put Towns in, I can put some of these other high-priced guys in if he's getting me these numbers, and I feel pretty good about Zaza Pachulia, which again is a very, very weird sentence to say. Bismack Biyombo at $4,000, he had 38 points in the last game. This could be a game, as I talked about with Vooch, that they have to give him more minutes. So at $4,000, he is a GPP guy with some upside to get some blocks, to get some maybe a double-double. That could work in your favour. Clearly no trust in cash though. The next game we'll take a look at, didn't even put my little graphics up. Slow off the mark there, Josh. There you go. The next one, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks are favored by 5.5, and the total is 206.5. D'Angelo Russell for the Lakers is out for the next 2 weeks with that knee sprain and calf strain. Nick Young is questionable with a knee problem that he suffered in Friday's action, and Luol Deng, who's missed the last couple of games, is questionable with his wrist. Obviously, if Deng misses, it's all about Brandon Ingram, and if Young misses, then the guards are really stretched thin, so it's going to be tons of Lou Williams and tons of Jordy Clarkson in that scenario. Let's talk point guards. Clarkson's at 4,400. He is going to get a fair chunk of run here, so he is one of the better players on the entire slate. Really do think that he is a guy, not necessarily, no, he's pretty close to a must play. At 4,800 on DraftKings, they've gone the predictive route and bumped his salary up in advance. It's still not quite high enough to make me say, no, we're not using Jordy. He's averaging 26 across the last 5, which at 4,800 is almost where you need to be anyway. Plus he gets this extra bump with potentially Uncle P out and D'Angelo already ruled out. Darren Williams at 6,300. It's just way too high. He's averaging 31 over the last 5. Yeah, the matchup is a positive one, but there's no way I can rely upon Darren Williams in a tournament. In cash on FanDuel. On DraftKings, a different story. 5,900. He's averaging 34 across the last 5. A positive matchup against the Lakers. That I can get behind with the scoring and with the price of him on DraftKings. I think Darren is a decent guy to take a look at. So it does very much depend on what site you're playing on. Jose Calderon probably gets some extra run in this game too, but I don't think you should be overly excited, although he did go at a point per minute in the last game, having 19 points in 19 minutes, and at 3,600, if he gets 20 minutes, that potentially means 20 points, so that's going to be worthwhile. Would I do it? No. Shooting guard, here we go. Lou Williams at 5,100 on FanDuel. He's already averaging 37 points over the last 5 games. Last 3 games. On DraftKings, he's averaging 40 over the last 3. He's at 5,600. Put him in. Uncle P goes out, it works even more in your favour. Really like Lou Williams here. He's on a nice little string, plus now Russell is out, so he's going to have to play more minutes. Seth Curry with JJ Barea out for a few weeks. He's going to get 30 minutes. Now, he's been getting it anyway and giving us 21 points in return, which is not great, but this is a good spot to use. You could easily construct a lineup that has Clarkson at point guard, Seth and Lou at the 2 shooting guard spots, and then go big with Durant, with Towns, with Jokic in some of the other spots. This is where the value comes from on this slate with these guards in this game in particular. As for the other shooting guards on the slate, Wes Matthews is at 54. Matthews occasionally gets to that. He doesn't get much higher than that, and it's a bit unpredictable, so that makes him not a great cash play because it just doesn't... it's not reliable, and he's not a good GPP guy because the upside is not necessarily high enough to pay off the risk. At small forward, Lou Deng, screw it, wouldn't be using him even if he's ready. The pencil at 6,500 just constantly feels like he is overpriced. He's at 6.2 on DraftKings, which maybe you can get behind, but even with the good matchup, I'm not 100% feeling it for Harrison Barnes at those above 6,000 prices. Brandon Ingram's the guy we want to look at. He's at 4,400 on FanDuel, so a price rise. He's at 49 on DraftKings. So yeah, he's been putting up good numbers. He's averaged 28 the last 3 games. But at almost $5,000, he needs to get 2,800. So if Deng plays, it's a write-off. If Deng is out, maybe he gets to value. The fact that they've bumped his salary so much sort of takes the edge off playing Brandon Ingram. On FanDuel at 4,400, yeah, there's still a little bit there. So if Deng is out, that's worthwhile. But on DraftKings at a $5,000 price tag, I don't really like that at all. At power forward, Dirk. Hasn't been good lately. At 5,500, feels too high. Not interested. 55 on DraftKings, the same story, not keen. Julius Randle at 6,500 has not produced a big game in a while. This could be the one, although the Mavericks are pretty good against opposition power forwards. 6,500's quite a bit to spend on Julius, and at 68 on DraftKings, it definitely has no cash appeal, but he would be in a GPP pool. Larry Nance is back for this game. It's going to be limited minutes, so we're not going to be using him, but that does impact Julius Randle as well. Tariq Black, Dwight Powell, none of those guys should be really considered. At center, do you take a punt on minimum salary Salah Mejri? I say no, but it's a possibility. Tim Mozgov at 37 is the interesting one. He had 27 points in 25 minutes in the last game, but with Nance back, that's going to cut into what Mozgov can do, and obviously it cuts into a lot of what Ivica Zubats can do as well. So the centers in this game, they're pretty ugly, in that not from a physical beauty point of view. The next game we take a look at, the Phoenix Suns and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are favored by 11.5, and the total is 220.5. It's the Toronto big men we're checking up on, Bebo Nogueira and Pat Patterson. They're both listed as questionable, Bebe with the concussion and Patterson with his knee problem. At point guard, this is where the big money should be spent. If you're spending up on a point guard, I don't think it's Steph. I think you're going with Kyle Lowry or Eric Bledsoe. Bledsoe is at 8,300 over on FanDuel. Bledsoe is at 8,400 on DraftKings. He's been putting up fantastic numbers. I like him, except that he has to take on Kyle Lowry. On the other side of things, Lowry takes on a Suns team that's really good to point guards. Now, he has been inferior to Bledsoe recently. Bledsoe's averaging 48 over the last 3. Lowry at 37. Big discrepancy. But I still think that at $8,600, $300 more for Lowry, I would rather take him in on FanDuel, and at 85 on DraftKings, the same story. I would rather take Lowry over there, but you could consider them relatively interchangeable. The defense factor onto Bledsoe is sort of offset by his lower price, and they are fairly much a toss-up as two of the better high-price point guards on the board. Corey Joseph, yeah. He backed up his 43-point game with a 5-point game, and that's because he went back to that bench role. At shooting guard, DeRozan's at 9,000. Again, you might be looking for money to spend somewhere. So DeRozan at 9,000, you should feel pretty good about getting at least 40. Love him even more at 8,300 on DraftKings, while Devin Booker at 6,500. Had a nice game today, but with the way that Devin Booker plays, 6,500 is not an easy amount to get to. 69 on DraftKings is ugly. I do not like that salary whatsoever, especially against the Raptors. So Booker, to me, is somewhat of a fade here in this spot. At small forward, TJ Warren is strictly a tournament guy. Yeah, really stunk today. He's at 4,600. He can go off, but he doesn't often get the opportunity anymore. While Terry Ross at 3,800. If we have Pat out, if we have Bebe out, you're going to get close to 30 from Terry, and he can get 25 points. So I do like Terry Ross as a punt option on both DraftKings and FanDuel. That sub 4,000 guy who can go off, almost the definition of a tournament type of player. Damari Carroll's at 4,000 because he's averaging 11 points over the last 3 games. That's not even enough to bring back value at that salary. He's at 46 on DraftKings. He feels like a significant stay away. While PJ Tucker at 4,000, I don't hate PJ Tucker. 25 points in the last game, 22 over the last 3, $4,000. That's value. Yeah, I can see Tucker being someone that I would consider in more a cash game scenario. I don't really see how high his upside is. That's the word I'm looking for. At power forward, Jared Sullinger. Cool, let's keep moving. Marquise Chris at 3,600. I think he always remains a GPP option. Watson's going to continue to stifle his minutes, but even today, in 22 minutes, dropped 28 points on FanDuel. So that's obviously big numbers. He had almost 30 points on DraftKings at 3,200. Love him as a GPP play at power forward, especially if the Raptors are missing both Bebe and Pat. If he has to go up against Pascal Siakam or Jakob Poeltl or Damari Carroll, then he's going to have an ability to outplay those guys. Patterson, Bender, nah. Center, JV, Jonas Valanciunas, 5,600. It's a neutral matchup against Tyson Chandler. I would only really consider using Valanciunas if both Patterson and Bebe are out. If one of them is playing, it's going to be tough to use him. We all know Dwayne Casey's going to screw with his minutes, so that's the concern there. While Tyson Chandler at 5,700 just been a model of consistency. Really hard to build a lineup without him in it. Now I say that, but on FanDuel, you just might have cash left over, and then upgrading him from Chandler to Towns or to Jokic is going to be the better way to go. But he's a nice, good value player at center. Let's move on to the last game of the night. Who is it? It is the Denver Nuggets. They're taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. No spread currently out for this game at the moment. Let's get into it now. As I stated, Emmanuel Mudiay has been ruled out of this one already with that back soreness, so he is not playing. I'd imagine that Jameer Nelson gets the start in his place. Rick Rubio is also out for the Timberwolves. That doesn't automatically mean Chris Dunn is in, because A, they bumped his salary already by $900, and B, he's not that good. So I can see a minute split happening with him and Tyus Jones. So let's talk about these point guards. Jameer Nelson at 3,800, I think that he is a great option, probably the best cheap point guard. And cheap point guards is going to be one of the ways to go. Him, Jordy Clarkson, and then you can supplement them, or even go both of them and go big in other areas. There are a few cheap options around. So Nelson at that price. Tyus Jones is going to be the low option cheap GPP point guard if he plays more minutes than Chris Dunn, which is a distinct possibility. He's a minimum salary player, Tyus Jones, so he would be my sneaky, low-priced guy that could potentially go off. So he's a guy to look at here. Jamal Murray, I'd put him in that Tyus Jones category, maybe a step behind. While Chris Dunn's at 4,400, I don't want to spend 4,400 on Chris Dunn in majority of scenarios. On DraftKings, it's better. Chris Dunn's at 3,800. Yes, they've jumped him up by $800, but 3,800 is not terrible. The matchup is a good one. I can get behind using him, but I'd still only want to look at Chris Dunn as a GPP type of a player. Where else? Now let's talk shooting guards. Farton, Will Barton at 5,700. Yep, no problem with locking him in there. You can go with him and Lou Williams backcourt. That would be absolutely fine. Zach LaVine at 6,600. Great matchup for Zach, but there is no way that you can trust him in cash. I would consider him a GPP guy, but he has struggled to return anywhere near value of late. Small forwards, Wiggo. Yeah, we know he's a GPP guy. He had 38 in the last game, so that probably means a 20-pointer is coming up from Wiggo, but at 7,000, there is no way that you can trust that in cash, while Wilson Chandler at 5,700 only played a few minutes today, but still was productive. Whether I look to use him or not remains to be seen. I probably would say he's a punt option, while the Rooster at 5,900, I think the Rooster is solid at that price without being a spectacular option on both sites. Power forwards, yeah. Ken Farid's at 5,400. With Wilson Chandler back, with the Rooster playing, I don't have faith in Fareed, and I don't think his upside's high enough as a GPP option, so not a lot to really love with Ken Fareed. He's at 56 on DraftKings. That's not interesting. And Nick Jokic, who is at 10,200 now. Now, is this too high? It probably is. It's pretty high. Now, on DraftKings at 9,100, that's totally fine. That is a number I can get behind. 10,200 is pushing it just a little bit. So I think that might be a situation to potentially steer away from. At centre, Carl Towns is at 10,000. He dropped 59 in the last game in 41 minutes. I feel pretty good about spending up on him. Over on DraftKings at 10-1, I'm less interested in Towns, but I still think that he has value over there, considering he did have 63 in that last game, that game against the Los Angeles Clippers. We are done for the game previews. Let's now talk about the picks of the day, and thank you to Brandon for pointing out that when I do the picks of the day that I speak a little bit quickly. So let's go through them again at a slower speed. But remember, when I give these picks of the day, this is not saying play every one of these guys. These are guys that at certain price points I think might have the best value, but it's about finding the players that fit together. It's not about just playing every one of the picks of the day every time. When I construct a lineup, I won't go through my picks of the day and go, I've got to have all of these guys in. That's just not the way it works. I'll have a group of those guys in, and then I'll build lineups around that. So it's not a matter of you've got to have every pick of the day in. Just remember that this is not me providing a list of guys that absolutely have to be in every one of your lineups. That's not the way it works. But let's talk about them in a slower fashion. On FanDuel, Jordy Clarkson, he's at 4,400. Alfred Payton, he's at 6,200. They're guys that I talked about before. Kyle Lowry, who could be interchangeable with Eric Bledsoe there, but 8,600 for Kyle. I think he's in a really good spot, a good matchup against Phoenix. Shooting guards, Seth Curry, 4,000. Lou Williams, 5,100. You could put Fart and Will Barton in that group as well. A few good, cheap shooting guards around. If you've got cash left over to splash, you go for DeMar DeRozan at 9,000. For the small forwards, Terry Ross is at 3,800. That's a GPP type of option. Aaron Gordon at 52. I like him in both formats. And Kev Durant at 10,600. Getting 50 out of him feels like it's a lock on pretty much most days. At power forward, Marquise Chris at 36, strictly GPP, but we saw what he could do today in limited minutes. The problem is his coach is a numbnuts. Gorgie Jang at 5,400 and Draymond Green at 8,200. At centre, Zaza Pachulia, 42, Tyson Chandler, 57, and rounding it out, Carl Anthony Towns, $10,000. On DraftKings, Jordy Clarkson, 48, Darren Williams, 49, which I like Darren on there rather than FanDuel, and Lowry at 85, again, interchangeability with Bledsoe. Shooting guards, Seth Curry, 40, also... these graphics were produced before Moutier was ruled out for Sunday's game, so put Jameer Nelson at the top of these for point guard value. Lou Williams, 56, DeMar DeRozan, 83. Small forwards, Terry Ross is at 37. Wes Matthews at 5,000, a much better option for him on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel. And Kevin Durant at 10,300. At power forward, Marquise Chris remains at 3,200. I don't think that'll remain there for much longer, so he's worth a look in a GPP. Gorgie Jang at 53 and Draymond's at 8,000. And at centre, Tim Mozgov at 31 as a punt option only. Tyson Chandler, 55, and Nick Jokic, 9,100. Not doing the Aussie sides today, as I said, 2-game slate. Screw that. I don't think that you should really be playing on those sites, but you can use the information that I talked about on the in the game previews to work out a lineup there. All right, we are done for today's show. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Check out patreon.com/redrock_bball. And of course, basketballmonster.com, the site where you can get all the best seasonal tools and DFS tools for fantasy basketball. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Doc Rivers.